I was never superstitious. Horror books always fascinated me, but more as entertainment than something that could truly scare me. That's why when I found an old copy of a book called Echoes of the Abyss at a local secondhand bookstore, I bought it without a second thought. The book looked worn, with cracked leather covers and nearly faded golden lettering. As I held it, I felt something odd, like a faint vibration in the palms of my hands. I ignored the sensation and brought the book home, eager to dive into its pages. For the first few nights, Echoes of the Abyss was exactly what I expected, a collection of macabre tales, each one darker than the last. It was an engaging read, but nothing that kept me up at night, until I reached page 197. The first thing I noticed was how different the paper felt. While the rest of the book had yellowed pages worn by time, page 197 was strangely new, bright, and smooth, as if it had been inserted recently. Running my fingers over it sent a chill down my spine. It felt alive. The text was illegible, made up of strange symbols that seemed to shift when I stared at them too long. It was as if they were moving, forming words I could almost comprehend, only for them to slip away at the last moment. I tried to turn the page, but it wouldn't budge. It was as if it were glued in place. Suddenly, I felt something pulse. The page vibrated slightly, as though it had its own heartbeat. The sensation was so unsettling that I dropped the book onto the floor. As I watched, the page began to ripple and fold, like the surface of a lake disturbed by something beneath it. Then shapes began to emerge. At first they were undefined shadows, but soon they became clearer, pale, distorted faces, as if trapped within the paper itself. Their hollow eyes stared at me, and their mouths moved silently, forming words I couldn't hear. I turned off the light and backed away, but even in the darkness, the page glowed faintly, radiating a sickly green hue. In the following days, I avoided the book. I had tried to forget what I'd seen, but curiosity gnawed at me. I showed the book to my friend Daniel, who also loved horror stories. He was captivated by the aged cover and asked to borrow it. "Sure, but let me know what you think of page 197, I said casually, trying to hide my discomfort. Daniel just laughed, thinking I was joking. He took the book home, and I felt relieved to be rid of it. A few days later, Daniel returned the book with a smile. "Man, what an amazing book. Some of the stories really gave me chills. But I didn't get the joke about page 197. What was it supposed to be?" I laughed nervously, thinking he was trying to scare me. "A joke? What do you mean?" "I'm serious. Tell me what you thought about page 197, I asked, almost interrogating him. He started laughing, but seeing I was serious, frowned in confusion and said, "Dude, the book only has 196 pages. I opened the book in front of him, but as I flipped through the pages, page 197 wasn't there. The book ended on page 196. "What the hell is this?" I asked, my hands trembling as I flipped through the book repeatedly, unable to believe it. "Maybe you were mistaken," Daniel suggested, looking concerned about my reaction. But I knew I wasn't crazy. Later that night, I decided to face the book again. I flipped through the pages slowly, counting them one by one. Everything seemed normal until I turned past page 196, and there it was, page 197. The page pulsed again, and this time it seemed to move more violently, as if trying to escape the book itself. When I touched the paper, it was hot, almost burning my fingers. Words began to appear, written in familiar handwriting. "Mine, you shouldn't have come back." I dropped the book, and before I could react, the page began disintegrating into ashes. The rest of the book remained intact, but page 197 was now just a blank space. For a few minutes, I stood frozen, staring at that surreal void. I tried to convince myself it was a trick of the mind, an illusion born of exhaustion or overactive imagination. But when I picked up the book again, something felt different. It was heavier, as if the words inside had gained weight. I decided to lock it away in a drawer, securing it with a key that I hid in the most unlikely place, inside a box at the back of my closet. But that didn't solve the problem. That same night, as I tried to sleep, I heard a faint noise. It was like the rustling of leaves. It seemed to echo from inside the drawer where the book was kept. I got up, turned on the light, and opened the drawer with trembling hands. The book was there, but now there was something more. A fine layer of ashes covered the bottom of the drawer. I picked up the book and flipped through it, and there it was, page 197, back again. But this time, it wasn't just a blank space. In the center of the page was a single sentence written in hurried, small letters. "You saw, but you should not have touched." My heart raced. When I touched the words with my finger, the page vibrated again. But now it felt more intense, as if something was trying to escape from within. The next morning I was overcome with urgency. I took the book to a local antique shop, hoping to find someone who could explain what was happening. The man working there, an elderly gentleman with a weary expression, looked at the book with a strange look, almost as if he recognized it. "Where did you get this?" he asked, his voice heavy with distrust. "I bought it at a second-hand bookstore a few days ago," I replied. He slowly shook his head. "This book, it shouldn't exist." Before I could ask what he meant, a voice echoed. It wasn't his or mine, but a deep, guttural sound, as though coming from inside the book itself. "Why did you bring me here?" The antique dealer paled and stepped back. "You need to get rid of this. Now." "How? By burning it?" I asked desperately. "No. If you burn it, it will return, stronger." I returned home with more questions than answers. I decided to hide the book again, but the key I had used to lock the drawer was gone. I tore through the closet and the entire house, but I couldn't find it. When I returned to the drawer, it was unlocked. Inside, along with the book, there was something new. A small, golden key. Holding it sent a chill through me. It wasn't mine. Without thinking, I placed the key on the table, but it began turning on its own, scratching into the wood. It seemed to form a drawing, an eye. From that moment, strange things began happening around the house. Mirrors showed reflections that weren't mine. The walls seemed to whisper at night, and the glow of page 197 could be seen even with the book closed. Finally, I gave in to curiosity and opened the book again. The page was different once more. It was no longer paper, but a sort of miniature portal, with a surface that looked like water yet felt solid to the touch. I could see something on the other side. A dark landscape with twisted towers and a pulsating red sky. My gaze was drawn to the center of the page, where the eye etched by the key was now perfectly detailed. It blinked. I felt something pulling my hand and the book began to vibrate violently. I dropped it on the floor, but the portal on the page grew, casting a red light that filled the room. Suddenly, the eye spoke. It wasn't loud, but its voice resonated directly in my mind. "You opened the door. Now, it will not close." That night, I realized the book wasn't an ordinary object. It was a door, a link between our world and something far older. Something that should never have been awakened. Now, even when the book is closed, I can feel its presence everywhere. And every time I pass by a mirror or look at a window, I see the eye watching me. But what terrifies me most isn't the eye or the words that keep appearing. It's that, somewhere deep down, I know page 197 is no longer in the book. It's inside me. After that night, things grew irreversibly worse. The book seemed to be everywhere, even when I locked it away or hid it. I could swear I saw it on my nightstand when I woke up, even though I had left it in another room. And the eye, it was everywhere. Mirrors, windows, even in the shadows cast by lights. The eye never stopped watching me. Always fixed, always present. I tried to return it to the second-hand bookstore where I bought it, but the place was closed. It looked abandoned for decades, with boarded-up windows and layers of dust everywhere. That's when I realized there was no escape. The book had become a part of me, or perhaps I had become a part of it. I could no longer tell where one ended and the other began. One night, I gave in to exhaustion and opened the book once more. This time, page 197 wasn't a portal, nor ashes, nor words. It was a perfect mirror, reflecting my face with unsettling clarity. But the reflection didn't move like me. It stared back, motionless, with a hollow and dark gaze. "It's time," the reflection said, using my voice. Before I could react, the mirror on the page began pulling me in. At first, It felt like a strong gust of wind, but then it became an irresistible force, dragging me into the book. I tried to resist, but it was useless. The room around me vanished, swallowed by darkness. Now I'm here, trapped in a space without time, a place where everything is nothing. I looked around, desperately searching for an escape, but there was nowhere to go. Then I heard the sound of pages turning, as if the book itself were alive. That's when I realized I was no longer in the real world. I'm trapped inside a book that should never have been opened, and I know no one will ever find me, because there is no way to discover page 198. Thank you for watching. Subscribe for more.